Today's sponsor of the Vision Quest podcast is 920 Hat Company. Leather patch hats are in, and 920 Hat Company is here to hook you up with your very own custom hat. All patches are lasered on top-grade genuine leather and on popular brand hats like Richardson and FlexFit. Whether you're looking to show off your business or want a one-of-a-kind hat for yourself, 920 Hat Company can do it all. All the hats are handcrafted right in the Fox Valley, but worn across America. With over 500 hats in stock, they guarantee fast turnaround times. Honestly, Liam, looking at these hats, solid, right?
Yeah, they're pretty. I like them.
I like that patch itself.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, one-of-a-kind stuff. I know his name's Trevor. He does great work. He's actually gotten I think we got a knit hat coming.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, we got that coming. So we're really excited to have these guys on board as a sponsor. So get down to check them out on Facebook. I believe they're on Instagram. Check them out, man. They got the best hats, I think, in the Fox Valley, if not in the state.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. So get down to 920 Hat Company on social media and check them out. And we're live, like I told you. We're doing like 30 seconds. So this is very exciting, and we had an actually pretty exciting time before we even jumped on here. We are joined with the great Sarah Hildebrandt. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, despite my almost technical difficulties leading in. My multiple difficulties, not just technical.
That was awesome. That was awesome. I had fun just going through that. So this is episode like number 108 or something like that, but we've been away for a little bit. I've been doing if you can't tell, I got Virginia Cavalier stuff on, so I've been doing a little Cavalier coverage of things and duels and everything, but been waiting to get someone as a guest on. We've had some time in between here, but we finally were able to get in touch with you and get you on. So thank you, Sarah, very much for taking the time out to do this. Greatly appreciated.
Oh, of course. Thanks for having me. I'm pumped.
You bet. So a lot of people listen to this. So the premise of the show is all about you. It's not about, I throw a little in about, maybe something I went through that can relate kind of thing, but we're talking about you from the remembering of sports to now, to you running around for Chargers.
To now, this old woman.
Man. You're calling yourself an old woman, and I'm older. I know that. So I'm like I'm an ancient man then. So okay. So let's start out from the beginning here. So is it Granger, Indiana that you're from?
Granger, Indiana, but I was actually born in Memphis, Tennessee.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So birth records brought you to Tennessee, but then you guys wound up over in Indiana. Was that before you remember anything? You guys wound up in Indiana? Or did you grow up in Tennessee for a little bit?
Yeah, no, I was in Memphis for a little bit. I can remember that. And then we moved to Roanoke, Virginia when I was in maybe like first and second grade.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I can remember that, but I was not playing sports at this. Well, I was a dancer.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a good start. So
yeah,
dance, was that competitive dance, or was it just, we got our kid, we wanted to get our daughter in something and have her do something kind of thing?
It started as that, and then it was getting competitive. And I loved it. I danced for a long time. Actually, once we moved to Indiana, even I was dancing still. So I would say I danced for maybe about 10 years.
Okay.
And yeah. Oh my God, it was the best. Ballet, tap, jazz, the whole thing.
Was that okay? So you started out in dance, and did you wind up like, how some kids are, we'll say like a boys, like football, soccer, baseball, that kind of thing. Were you doing dance? Were you doing volleyball? Were you other sports included with that in that time frame?
Yeah. So pre-Indiana time, I suppose.
Yeah.
I mostly danced, and then I tried playing soccer, but get this. Okay. I was so afraid the coach had to hold my hand and run up and down the field holding my hand. My parents would pay me if I just touched the ball because I would like run away from the ball. So I would get $5 for like literally just touching. Like most kids got $5 for scoring. No, I got $5 for touching the ball.
Wow.
And I don't think I made any money. So
so I enjoyed kids like you. So I did have a kid when I first started coaching, deathly afraid of the ball, just deathly afraid of it. Right. And no one, I don't know what happened to him before he ever got to soccer. So I don't know if like his friends threw the ball at him or so. Yeah, right. But he got to the point, and this is where I really started to think I really enjoy coaching. But I mean, by the end of the season, I had it to where a ball would go up in the air and he would go for it. Right. So you were like my guy. You were my kid that I would run after. You're the girl. I'd be like, hey, come here. I'm going to show you something. This sport's awesome. Yeah. Yes. So that's awesome. So soccer was a part of it. I love that. What part of dance do you think that helped you a lot as far as some of the stuff that you learned as a young girl growing up from dance taking into wrestling?
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of discipline required in ballet, dance in general. And so from a very young age, I was used to a training dynamic that was very serious and very disciplined. And I'm not saying that's necessarily a good thing.
Sure.
But I had exposure to it that I think helped me later on down the line.
Yeah.
I never had a problem being serious and disciplined. I needed to learn the playful side of sport. And so maybe that is from my ballerina roots, which is a very strict and serious dynamic. Yeah.
Yes, it is. Yeah. So you were immersed, I guess immersed is the word, into structure of sports. With that structure then, and obviously you're kind of dabbling in other little, your parents putting you in other sports. When did wrestling come into the picture? Is that pre-Indiana still?
No, yeah. Wrestling didn't come in until I was in 7th grade. So in Indiana. And at that time, I was just getting done with dancing. I was playing soccer and I was actually not afraid of the ball anymore. So I did play soccer all through high school. Like soccer stuck with me. So I was playing soccer. I was playing tennis. I was swimming, which horrible swimmer. I was the worst swimmer.
Same here.
Oh my God. I was qualified every single meet. And it was so funny because it was like, they like announce it on like the lane. So I would be like swimming and I'd get so tired that I'd start doggy paddling. And I just feel like disqualification, lane 4. And I'm like,
humiliating.
Yeah, it's humiliating. But I was like, is it really a loss if I'm like, I'm not drowning? So who's the winner here?
Yeah. What are you guys really pointing out, that I'm surviving?
I'm still floating, so I'm doing something right.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So with the entrance of wrestling, I guess the next question before we get into it too much is, being that you're already in, like we said, structured sports, things like that. How are your parents already? Like, I always ask everybody, like, what was your support system like? How are your parents? Like, because like with Christina and I'm the sports guy. Christina's the educator side, right? Yeah. She handles the schooling. I handle the sports side. I kind of drove Liam a little bit, I wouldn't say too hard when he was little. Almost got to that point, right? But I was the driving force behind discipline and doing this. So you got to do it. You got to make sure you're doing this, right? But I also came from a side of, I played, semi-pro sports, and it wasn't easy right away. So I understood that there's certain things you have to go through while still slipping up as a parent, right? Exactly. How was that for you? And what was that dynamic like for you with mom and dad and things like that?
Yeah. So my dad was a really talented athlete growing up himself. So he also had experience through that. And then on top of that, my brothers were already involved in wrestling. So they were familiar with wrestling and just being a parent in the wrestling world already.
Yeah.
Familiar with being a parent to a girl wrestler on an all boys team. That was probably something new, but they were so, they never pushed me into anything. I had to ask them to go to practice, every practice. Like, they weren't like, it's time to go to practice. It's like every day I had to be like, will you drive me to practice?
Okay.
And so it always had to come from me. And then I did a lot of extra training. So I would wake up early in the morning. I had to be the one to go downstairs. I had to wake my parents up. If I wanted to go wrestle on the weekends at weekend tournaments, they're like, you need to ask us to go there. So it was never them forcing anything.
Okay.
But something like, I would be like, no, I'm not wrestling this weekend. It's my choice. And they would be like, I'm not mad, but I'm disappointed. And I'm like, no, fine, I'll wrestle this weekend. So there was a little bit of that.
Yeah. And so and that's kind of and I guess I never really pointed it out too much before, but I'm really starting to take note and seeing that kids that had high level athletic parents, right? Like it was part of their parents' life already. And maybe their parents went through the harshness of a parent being like, you have to do this. And why didn't you win by this much and stuff like that, where parents, and again, I slipped up a little bit as a parent, no matter what, but I'm noticing that all these, you included, all the athletes that have high level athlete parents have a different perspective and were brought up a little differently through the sport, right? Because of that struggle, because of some of that structure that maybe some kids aren't shown properly, right? You know, like the parent that is telling. So I'm always intrigued by that, especially with the support system, because sometimes there's one that does something and sometimes there's one that's the opposite, right?
They were always on the same page with that.
And that's awesome. And obviously, so I almost want to expound on that, because it gives that kid, that athlete, a level of a whole different perspective of just competing in general, right? The competing isn't about winning, losing, things like that, right? Yeah. It's more about effort and things, and discipline, and how well you're practicing and are you paying attention. It's those things.
Totally.
Whereas a parent that is nowadays that is new to sports, like maybe their kid is finally in sports, where they're the ones that are like, why aren't you, you're only doing this much, you only won like this. And it's just very interesting, especially now with the way that sports are with kids,
and as they start younger and younger and they become single sport athletes sooner. And I feel like, and this was absolutely the case with my parents, was always, it had to come from me, and effort was the biggest thing. I never, ever felt pushed to win or succeed because of them. It was always an intrinsic thing, and the effort was what they cared most about. And I promise you that stayed consistent my whole career. So
awesome.
That was just like, oh, they're kids, it's winning's not important. Like wrestling for an Olympic title. And it was like, oh, it's not about winning. And that's why I was capable to do something of that magnitude, because of the freedom that this isn't about winning.
Yep. So then that even spells out even more going into wrestling then. So when you started wrestling, you mentioned you were on an all boys team, things like that. But when you started in middle school, what was your first impression when you started wrestling?
I had no idea what to expect. It was just something that looked fun. And I was like, I want to try that. I think by no fault of anyone's, no one just expected me to be good. It was like, you're a girl, you're not, don't get pinned. And so the expectation was so low, I could just kind of have fun. There was a little bit of like, I don't know how people are going to react to this, or, I was kind of like prepped, like, people might be mean to you. And so kind of like getting ready for something like that. But I think basically what had happened, how I joined the team, was they didn't have someone small enough to fill the 65-pound weight class for 70. And I was like 65 pounds. So I was like, bro, I'll just, they were like, as long as we don't have to give up a forfeit, AKA just don't get pinned.
Yeah. And,
I can do that. Like, I can do that. So, of course, I ended up winning my first match. Actually, my first day of practice, I knocked a kid's tooth out. I'm like, I love
this. That's awesome. That's great. So with I guess the competing starting in middle school, things like that. And obviously now we know the dynamic with mom and dad. What were some of the, once you started, you liked it. Were you kind of getting some friends are like, oh, you should try this tournament. You should do this. How come we're going to this one this weekend? And you tell your parents, oh, can I go to that? When did you really start kind of, I guess, spreading your wings a little bit when it came to wrestling?
Yeah. I was lucky enough, like my school program, it was just natural to go through that. And then we had a club program attached to it. So everything was kind of calendared out, you could just kind of pick and choose. And then
Yeah.
as I got to be in high school is when I started being like, oh, I want to go here. And I had my group of friends. So it's like, all the 103 like, we're going to Portage next weekend. Like, so we would do things like that. Like, that was when I kind of got more autonomy from that.
Okay.
And such a multi-sport athlete all the way through high school, even like I was not a single sport athlete till my senior year, that a lot of times it was like I just had another season. So like wrestling season had an end actually, and I would go or track or whatever. So that kind of kept from having to pick a lot of things always. It was busy.
Sure. So with the middle school, middle school wrestling is what it is, right? But Indiana is not a slouch when it comes to wrestling. So it's not to say that every single town is a Perry, right? There's no, it's kind of like Wisconsin where you guys have like maybe 3-4 schools that are really good. Then we have 3 or 4 schools that are really good, but none of us are nationally ranked, right? It's one of those things where we still had good competition. It was good level of wrestling, but then once you went outside and did national stuff, you're like, holy crap, there's a whole different level, right? Yeah. So we took Liam on his first national tournament when he was like 9. When was your first like big tournament?
Oh, I would say, well, I didn't even start wrestling till I was 10, and then maybe 13 or 14.
Okay.
So that was like my first big nationals. Yeah, probably about 13 years old.
Where was that?
Banked, man. Woo! It took me a while to do well at a national tournament.
That's all right. That's right.
Girls, like I remember I did Iowa nationals.
Okay.
I don't know what it's called now. We just were in Iowa. It was.
I think it's folk style nationals or something like that now. I think.
It was rough. Oh my god.
Yeah.
And that was versus boys, and I lost very badly. And then my first girls national tournament was USGWA, and it was actually Michigan.
It was in Michigan, you said?
Yeah.
Okay.
Livonia, Michigan, I believe. And I also lost very badly there. Whoopsie.
Yeah. It doesn't really matter because you're holding an Olympic gold medal now. So that lost.
I can't complain.
Right. So when you guys, because you mentioned too about, all boys and, some people will be harsh, things like that. Were you ever at tournaments where your parents saw people acting just completely insane towards their boy having to wrestle a girl and they're like, nope, we're out?
It was like a lot of like boys would just like forfeit, like refuse to wrestle me. So that would happen.
Bunch of shit.
Yeah. It's like, okay, well, nothing like, it was, so that would happen. I don't think ever anything. I mean, that's probably a really great question. I've never asked them that they experienced maybe in the stands or anything. Say things to me, but I think they were far enough away that they didn't see or hear it, and I wasn't going to go tell them. Maybe guys were mean to me on the mat or a little rougher, you know what I mean? Like they were that, but they were never, they're like, she's tough. We're good.
Yeah, we're good. All right.
Character. No.
So it says here, as far as the information that I have, the town you're Granger, Indiana, but what high school did you go to?
Penn High School.
Penn. That's right. Penn. Okay. So what was that like? What was that like growing up? How was that high school environment for you?
Oh, it was fantastic. I mean, they're so supportive, so many girls and women that I talked to and had their experience in high school was very brutal. Like I feel even silly, having something to say in that department, because for the most part, everyone was so supportive. And like those boys on my team that I wrestled with are still to this day my best friend. In fact, my drill partner from 7th grade all the way through high school came to Paris this last summer to watch and cheer me on. Like that's how close we still are. So
that's awesome.
And it was like that really across the board. Now there were moments, there were people who were absolutely jerks to me at Penn for sure, but few and far between. And so that was just super cool. And the whole administration supported it. It wasn't just the wrestling team. It was the school.
That's awesome.
superintendent, like the whole community came behind with a few bad seeds in there that were easy to manage because overwhelmingly supported.
Right. That's awesome. So that's, I guess that's never something we really touched on before, as far as with any athlete is just having that. Not only do you have your parent support, but having school support all the way through, and coaches and partners and things like that. Cause I mean, you had made a post too, cause I know your brother, is it Drew?
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's been around with you for a little while too, as far as practicing, helping. So you had a really good nucleus around you as far as the parents and friends and all that. So that's, to me, that also speaks volumes when it comes to a high level athlete, right? You have ups and downs. Everybody wins, everybody loses, but it's always, because I think we forget about how hard the mental, it's not just physically, but how hard the mental side of the sport is, right? Oh. And especially when you guys are starting to blaze a path, for other girls coming up and doing the things that you guys are doing at the time that you didn't know you were doing. You were just trying to wrestle, right? You're just trying to compete. Exactly. That's it. Right. You guys were doing your thing, but your thing was exponentially larger than what it really was. So
yeah, that's so true.
Knowing that obviously you're coming up and going through high school wrestling and things like that. Did you ever have a moment where you're like, I don't know if I want to do this anymore. I'm good on wrestling.
God, yeah. My every other week was probably like, what am I doing? If the girl go bake a cake or something. For sure. I mean, wrestling is just so hard. It is so hard. And there's so many elements to it. And it takes a lot of courage. And I never identified as somebody who is courageous. I never identified as somebody who was resilient or tough. To this day, even, I'm like, I feel very frail. I'm very emotional. I cry very easily. And it's always been the case. And so when you put that next to a picture of what you think an Olympic gold medalist is, it's not me. Like I'm afraid of everything and I'm always crying and I'm sleepy a lot. And
okay.
Don't feel tough ever. And so there's of course a lot of moments where you doubt that. And so to that point of just like having this group of people around you who support you and hold your hand through that and just kind of just boost you up in a way and remind you like what you're trying to do has nothing to do with winning. It's just growing as a person. I didn't realize that when I was in high school. Of course, I didn't have that amount of wisdom yet, but it was still between that, and that was helpful.
Yeah. So going through Penn, and because this has always been different for every athlete, but it's always especially different for the girls, right? You're going through high school wrestling and obviously there's challenges, but you were doing what other sports was it soccer in high school? What other sports were you doing?
Soccer in high school. Yeah, I think it was just wrestling and soccer by high school. Okay. Maybe a little tennis here and there. I was hanging on to that.
You're already one of my favorites for just hanging on to soccer. That's fantastic.
Yeah, soccer I still have dreams about playing soccer.
Oh, man, I tell you what, I didn't get to go. My brother was sent over to Europe to play soccer for USA soccer, whatever it was at the time. But my parents spent all the money on him, right? Like I didn't get to go because I guarantee you, if I went over, I wasn't coming back. There's no way.
That's why they didn't have any money. They're like, we're not letting him go.
I would not be coming back. So that process that you wound up going through, then wrestling, and then you said you kind of wound up doing wrestling only your senior year. Were you getting calls from colleges, things like that? I mean, what was that process like for you?
Yeah. There were so few schools at that time, which is just crazy to think how we're at now. But I was getting contacted by a few coaches. Funnily enough, the program I wanted to go to wasn't giving me a ton of attention, but I was like hell bent. I'm like, we're going here. But once I got there and I realized they weren't like super interested, I was like, okay, maybe it is time to pivot. But which, it all worked out in the end. And it was a lot of that. My parents were very, you need to take care of this type of deal. And it was, I hated it. Like even to the point when it's like time to tell the schools I wasn't going to go there. I'm like, please just like, they'll find out. They're like, you will call them and you'll thank them. They'll tell them you're not going. I'm like, oh my God, the confrontation.
It's difficult, right? I mean, you guys are so
It's
young. Yeah, you guys are young. You haven't had to even call a boss and be like, I can't make it into work or anything, right? Like,
Yeah. No, Papa and Mama Hildy were like, get on the phone. I'm like, oh God.
So when you made the first, there are a couple stories that we've heard where guys are like, hey, I'm not going to go here kind of thing. And coach is like, fine. It's why, all this other thing. Did you have coaches that were upset with you when you called them to tell them no?
No, everybody, I mean, they give you the hard, like, a little bit of a hard time, but nothing, everyone was always so kind. And even through my career, I feel like I just had really great relationships with all the coaches that I had spoken with. And it was always good vibes in that regard.
Nice. So you wound up at King.
Whoop,
so
whoop.
What, let's say, whoop, whoop. Let's talk about that for a minute. What, obviously they were one of the ones that contacted you, right?
Yes.
What was the draw?
Like why I ended up going there?
What drew you to them?
Yeah. It's funny because, well, I didn't want to go there. It was like last. And, so once I realized that first program I wanted to go to didn't want me, I went down to Oklahoma City, which they were the #1 women's wrestling program at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, all right, boom, this is where I'm going. Like, I'm going here. They're the best. I'm the best. We're going to be the best together.
Yay. Yeah.
Yay. Close the storybook. My parents were like, I think you should go on this visit. And I was like, bro, no. Like, I'm a senior in high school. I just want to hang out. So we end up going. I think my mom actually kind of low-key bribed me by being like, oh, because we drove from Indiana to Tennessee. She's like, we'll just stop at all the outlet malls on the way. I'm like, I'm in. So
she's a shopper, everybody. She's a shopper.
So we did a lot of shopping and, did the whole thing. And then I went to King for my visit, and it wasn't even necessarily the wrestling, although that was great. And Jason Mormon, the coach at the time, he was fantastic as well. Really cool, really steady. Really, it was the girls, and they just took me, and we went to like intramurals. There was an intramural basketball game or something, whatever. They were a part of an intramural team. And I just watched and cheered with the girls and like hung out. We went to Sonic afterwards and got food. And I was like, I could see myself doing, like, it was the outside of wrestling life. And I was like, I could see myself being a person here and like making friends here. Whereas like every other program I went to, it was like, you're going to wrestle and we have this weight room and we're going to work out all the time. And I'm like, whoa, I'm more than that.
Yeah. Right. Well,
so that's what
that was the big thing that we looked at too, as far as, and just knowing and having the people around us that we know, there are a lot of things they told us, like, basically exactly what you said. You have to be comfortable with your environment. You have to be comfortable when you're not wrestling, when you're not in the wrestling room, you have to like the stuff around you, people, environment. So it totally makes sense. And it's kind of funny how you probably stumbled upon that yourself. Right. I mean, a lot of people don't realize that they're on the track of, like, I want to go to Iowa, or I'm number one. I'm going to go here, that kind of thing. So, and it's all right. There's nothing wrong with that, but in the grand scheme of things, how comfortable are you there? Are you only comfortable in the wrestling room? And then when you go to walk down to Jimmy John's, you're like, I don't want to be here, that kind of thing.
Yes. It's funny. I wrote out a spreadsheet and prioritizing like what was most important to me, but it was all to do with wrestling. So I was like training partners, all of these facilities. And you're right. I wasn't even aware of it until I stepped in and experienced it. And I was like, wow, that was so much fun. Mm-hmm. And they also have good training partners and a good coach. And we, and then that made other things more doable too. Like, okay, do we have the best wrestling room? I don't know, but I don't care because these things are so much better. And I realize they're more important to me.
Yep. And I think it's really big, especially for kids now, that if you're listening to this, like, it's all encompassing. Like, you have to be able to live life. Imagine you got thrown out of school and you can't go home and you're stuck in that town. Would you stay there?
Exactly.
And that's kind of the way we painted it out to Liam. And, the same thing with him, like, he loved every visit, it was like, oh, this is so cool. It's so cool. But it was the one that was like, this feels different. This feels better. Like,
you're there. It's
totally. Correct. So what year did you graduate in high school?
2011. 11.
So let's jump to 2013. You represented the United States. You were in Kazan, Russia.
Yeah.
And yeah, you wound up winning a medal, right? Okay.
No.
So
yeah.
What's that?
I did not win a medal at that. That was a University Worlds game.
Yes. Summer Universiade or something. Yeah.
Yes.
Medal?
Basically what U23s are today, but I am a nice seasoned wrestler. So back in the day, way back in my time, they did not have 23 worlds. They had university worlds. So that's what it was called.
Okay. So with that being said, when was your first overseas experience? Was that it?
No. Oh my gosh. I was fooled. I actually, my first overseas trip. So I actually had gone to a junior Pan Am's, which was in Nicaragua, but obviously not overseas. And then my first overseas trip was to Pattaya, Thailand for Junior Worlds in 2011. So this stage for my international trips, I'm like, Thailand, what an experience. We're on the beach. We're riding elephants. We're like eating the best fruit known to man.
Sounds like fun.
Well, it was great. Color me surprised when my butt ends up in Krasnoyarsk, Russia 3 years later at negative 40 degrees. I'm like, wait, these are trips? I thought we were going to Thailand.
Yeah, right. So that must have been the Yarrigan you went to then, huh?
Yeah, Yarrigan, which is an amazing. No hate actually on that. I love that tournament. Love that.
Yeah. Well, you've killed it every time you've been there, I'm pretty sure. So, yeah, gold and silver.
Gold and silver.
Oh, so that's the other thing. So we can talk about college and things like that. And things are just so weird, I think, in your guys' time in college, right? It was emerging. Things are coming up. But you guys didn't have the exposure, right? So that's where a lot of, and obviously you guys still wrestle freestyle in college and most high schools do. We don't hear WIA doesn't have freestyle because wouldn't have the referees to do it, things like that. I still feel like it's a bummer for the girls, but either way, it's a step up. We'll take it. And yeah, right. Exactly. So your meteoric rise essentially comes after college here. So what are you yourself putting yourself into different training schedules and things like that? Once you got through college, you kind of experienced that, I guess, higher level type thing. Were you now understanding that there is a training regimen that needs to go on cycles? They call it. Were you figuring that out once you got overseas, or were you figuring that out in college already?
No, college was a mess. I honestly, even so I was done with school in 2015. I went home, thought I could train at home in Indiana. That wasn't going to work. So that's when I moved out to the Olympic Training Center, summer of 2015.
Wow.
And, it's still just kind of a lost puppy. Like, wrestling wasn't like mine yet. Like, I was doing it because I was decent at it. And, I was traveling the world and that was it. Like, it was fun. But there was nothing but like my drive of like, I want to win an Olympic gold medal. It was just, I was kind of there. Like,
sure.
It happened until 2017 when I had dislocated my elbow. And so I had already made senior by this point.
Yes.
So it just really, after I dislocated my elbow, that was when I kind of really started understanding and buying into all of this and just focusing on that.
Well, yeah, because you can tell, because 2017 was a silver. Then after that, it's gold. and then there's you got 20, was that Pan Am Games 2019 gold. You had a couple bronzes in Belgrade. But it just seemed like you were just, like you just said, you were starting to put things together, right? Were you already being coached by Terry? Was he in the program by then?
Yeah. Terry was my coach. Yeah, starting in 2015.
Terry Steiner, for the people that are new to this. I had his brother on a couple times.
So great.
I know. They're both awesome. Don't get me wrong. Those are guys I idolized when watching them in college. That was my era.
Yeah.
So knowing that he was in charge of the girls program, I was like, this is gonna get good, and it's only gotten better, right?
Oh, yeah,
it's only gotten better. So with a big thing that we talk about here, because we've had shoot from Vision Quest, Frank Jasper. He is we've had him on a couple times. He's got a master's in Chinese nutrition, right? So we really started to dial him in a little bit more with nutrition. Man, did I notice a difference in him, right? Were there little things like that you're starting to put together that you really, I mean, obviously you didn't really pay attention to much, but you kind of knew it was there. Were those the little things you were starting to kind of change and you noticed kind of a progression? You're good.
You're good. I got 50%. We're good. You're good. Thanks, Brandon. I'm sharing a chart. Sorry, everyone watching. I'm sharing a charger with my strength and conditioning coach who's doing a remote strength and conditioning program. He's at 2%. So we're good. Yeah. I have 1%. So now we're rock and rolling. We're
good. So were you starting to find little pieces that you didn't really pay attention to before that you noticed were starting to give you a little more success or feeling a little bit better about yourself as far as competition and training? Where did you notice those changes starting to come in? Was that once you got out to the Olympic Training Center, or was that you went somewhere else?
Nope. I've moved to the training center in 2015. I've been here ever since. And
man, you are a resident.
So I was a resident, lived here on complex for 4 years in the dorms. And then in 2018, I got a house just 3 miles away. So this is home. Wow. Yeah. But even when I first moved out here, it took some time, like I said, so probably around 2017. Mm-hmm. And I had made the decision, nutrition was a big thing for me. So I used to wrestle 55 kilos and then I just kept coming down. So 55, 53, and then 50 eventually. And so, I had to buy into nutrition a lot. I had to study that. And I remember having this thought of like, okay, I see the people around me. I see my own experience. Nobody is cutting weight really that well. Like this is so dumb. Like I learned from them. I'm doing this. We're all cutting weight dumb. When I had enough like awareness to realize that, I was like, whoa, that's something I can exploit. Like if I get good at this, 90% of my opponents are not good at this. Like that's an advantage. And it's a big one because it kind of is this foundation for the rest of those things, my technique, my strength, all of that. So
recovery.
Totally. So I'm like, wow, what a big hole, what a big blind spot, and really wrestling that you really, really take advantage of. And that was kind of what initiated that. And again, great people around me. And I just started learning, studying, relying on and getting help by people and slowly taking the time to understand nutrition and bringing my weight down. And that's what I did. So that's a big spot for me.
Before you got, because we all know that the Olympics is huge, but before you got to the Olympics, right? What was to that between 2017 and 2024 before the Olympics? What was your most, I would say, memorable and meant the most to you up until the Olympics? What win and what I guess tournament meant the most to you that you wound up walking away with? I don't care if it's a bronze medal, because I mean, third, you still got to come back, right? So that's a big deal still.
Yes. I would say like the 2021 Olympics bronze medal would be probably the most like ridiculous win, because I had lost so heartbreakingly in the Olympic semifinals.
Yeah.
Coming back for that one. But there's so many in that period. 2018 making that world team was really big for me. I had made a world team in 2016, but I don't know why. It just felt like I had still not bought into wrestling in the way that I started to buy in 2018. So 2018 felt like that start. Like I had injured my elbow in 2017 and I was kind of just like second on the ladder, good, but nobody was really like expecting anything from me. And then by the middle of 2018, I was ranked number 1 in the world. So there was like such that 7-month span, like it was so insane. It was meteoric. It felt like in my mind and brain and somewhere I never thought I was ever going to be. And So I think that 2018 world team win was like, oh my God, we're doing it. Like, this is actually, I want this and I'm actually doing it in a way that I'm proud of. And it kind of really just set the stage for, all the way through 24.
Well, and that's the thing is like, I mean, even when you're talking about injury and like you said, the sport wasn't yours. It wasn't your thing quite yet. But even at that statement, like looking at what you did and just so the mind boggles when you hear someone number one who wins the Olympics, right? And then they tell you that you just still hadn't bought in yet to what what the sport meant to you. And you just got done saying you're number one in the world. So it's kind of crazy. It's there's levels to this stuff. And that's the other thing that people don't kind of, they don't understand, right? Like you guys put in parents of kids that are like 10, 12 years old. You don't even know the half yet. And you don't want to, right? You don't need to, you let them have fun.
Exactly.
But just knowing that you came from, I'm just going to try this out and this, that and the other thing. And I really like this college. I'm going to try this out and see what happens. You still haven't bought into it. And then you're sitting here, like I said, I'm sitting here looking at your medal count, and it's like, holy shit, like you hadn't bought in yet, and this is what you were still doing. Like that's crazy. So how is it like for like? Do you get nervous before all matches? Is it something like that for you, or is it you had this kind of thing now where you it's all kind of, I guess, part of it, right? You don't feel like it's nervousness; it's just part of it.
Kind of in a way, but like I said, I'm a really fragile person, so I'm absolutely nervous. It was more so about not judging myself for being nervous and allowing those uncomfortable emotions to be present, because you're doing something that's nerve-wracking. It is stressful, and instead of spending so much energy pretending it doesn't exist or trying not to feel them, being open to feeling whatever the heck decides to come up and still being able to take effective actions in the presence of those emotions. And that was kind of what 2018 through 2024 was a lesson of. And I failed, so many times. But yes, I am before every single one of my matches, before 2024 Olympics, the day before, I sat on the floor of my hotel room and wept. I mean, cried like one of those, like one of those cries.
Oh, man.
I turned to my boyfriend and I'm like, I'm scared. I'm so scared.
Sure.
And he was just there, there's nothing to say, but I just say the picture of like, I think people think of elite athletes, Olympic athletes as these confident, I feel no bad emotion kind of person. And not true. Like everyone is so nervous. Like you can't even move. Sometimes you're so nervous. And it's really about dealing and being with those emotions versus like pushing them away.
Did you have to go and talk, like, do you ever sports psychologist? Have you ever had to use that, dive into that world?
Yeah. 3 sports psychologists. Like I said, very fragile.
But that's fine though, because I think recognizing that there's a barrier and then knocking the barrier down is part of the process, right? I mean, that's especially when it comes to a confidence level, because again, this game is very mental, not just physical. It's very mental. Like you said, and because everybody's made differently up here.
Exactly.
Not everybody can handle pressure the same. So with that being said, the psychology side of it, was there ever a point, because I asked you this when you were younger, even in this right now, when you got 2017, 2018 through 2024, was there a point where you're like, I got to stop. I'm done. This is too much.
Yes. Oh my gosh. So actually 2022 was a really horrible year for me. And I was going to, after 2022, and I had walked away with a bronze medal, at Worlds. But yes, I mean, there are moments, seriously, I had already made the Olympic team in 2024. I'm a big writer. I journal every single day of my life. And
oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah, love writing. So, it's fun to look back on my experience leading in, but I had already made the Olympic team and I was writing about like, Sarah, you don't even have to go to the Olympics if you don't want to. Like there's still those thoughts of like, if you don't want to do this, if you really don't want to do this, you don't have to. And I was writing that because there was thoughts in my head being like, don't do it. Don't go. Yeah. It's too scary. It's too much. Or it's, I don't want to go through this. I don't want to weight cut. I don't want to bare my heart and soul on that mat one more time and get my heart broken again. Like they're all the way, we're talking 2 months out from the Olympics. So that's a constant thing. And, you know, again, relying on people close to me, and also just realizing that your mind offers up a ton of crazy emotions and thoughts. It's seeking for certainty. I wasn't going to have certainty until the Olympics. So, you know, who knew what my brain was going to throw at me in those months leading up, years leading up. You know, thoughts are just thoughts. They're not, it doesn't mean anything. It's not concrete. It's not prophecy fulfilling. It's just a thought. And if I could let it pass on by and still do what I knew was important to me, okay.
I think athletes get it's the phrase you just brought up, the prophecy fulfilling. I think athletes live that a little too much, right? Like and it's fine if it works, but I think we live it a little too much when it comes down to the point of like, where am I supposed to go with this? Like when you ask yourself a question of how much longer can I do it? It's not even so much a prophecy thing. It's almost like a self-reliance. Like I'm relying on myself to be able to get myself through this with myself, right? Like it's just kind of a crazy circle. And because we're gonna jump on the 2024 Olympics here quick, but when you're training and again you had good coaches, good support system, things like that. When you got down to brass tacks and you get into the gym, wherever you're competing at the competition, is there a switch for you? Is there a switch that does turn off at some point where it's like the sound is not there, all you see is the person in front of you, and it's like kind of goes blank? Because Liam just told me the other day, like he doesn't remember most of his matches when he wrestles.
I remember my matches, but I'm a much better competitor than I compete better than I train, in my opinion. Okay. And so really for me and my support staff, coaching staff, everyone knew this about me. Like, we just got to get her to the competition and we'll be okay. And so a lot of it, as soon as I got on that plane to leave for a competition, it was like a weight had fallen off me. I was light. I was happy. I was excited. Everyone was like, whoa,
traveling.
Oh, this girl is weeping on the floor. Now, with that said, like I said, I cried the day before the Olympics, those waves. But for the most part, I feel exponentially better like the week of a competition versus like a month out from a competition. I am miserable, insufferable. I want to quit.
I want to reach out to you a month before you compete again.
No, you don't.
See where you're at.
I won't respond.
Let's see where you're at and be like, hey, just checking in. We want to go through this with you.
You don't want to talk to me.
We got we get to a point now where we're at the Olympics, the 2024 Olympics. Just getting there, right? That's a big deal, you know. But you made an Olympic team before, all things like that. With the Olympics and the weight and just the dreams that a kid has, right? Just thinking of it as a kid, like I'm going to go to the Olympics one day, and you see all the podium pictures and things like that. But you wind up there, right? And you, like you said, you're losing your mind, kind of thing. But once you're there and you're inside and you're smelling the whatever it is that they had over there in Paris, who knows what they're cooking. What was that life like living in that? Because you're already nervous, right? Now you still have competitors that are USA competitors. It's not like you're alone or anything like that, but you're kind of alone, right? I mean, you're sitting there in bed on those cardboard ass beds that they had for you guys.
No, so yeah, exactly. They were cardboard beds, which they were hard. They were hard. You know, it was a crazy. So we're lucky. So we were actually in the village for about maybe like 4 days when we first got there. And that's with everybody, all the sports, all the teams. It's very chaotic. But I was really kind of letting myself experience it. I didn't get to experience it at Tokyo because of COVID. We're at the end of the Olympics, so we still had a lot of time. So I was just like, can you be present with this day and just enjoy it? And you know, it was hard. I remember we were all at practice. It was us and the men's freestyle team, and everyone's just messing around, like having a good time. And I was not having it. Like, I just started crying. I'm like, we need to train. And actually, Kyle Dake I'm like crying to him. He's like a good friend of mine. And he's like, okay, fine. We'll put you through this like stance and motion workout. This poor man is like trying to put me through something serious. He's of course cool as a cucumber. Everyone's cool as a cucumber. Yeah. I'm crying. So I will not forget that moment of just like, talk about good team. Like people around me, they're like, okay, well, you know, he helps me. So it was stuff like that, leaning on people like that. And then we left for Normandy after the first 4 days. So
that's right.
And that was amazing. It was so great, right off the beach. It was absolutely, and that's where we were training. It was just the USA wrestling team.
Nice.
And so, and then we came back and I competed about 3 days after we got back to Paris. And at that point we did not stay at the village. We stayed in a hotel. So again, I was not around my competitor much, but
yeah. So when you talk about like the living, because again, I'm just thinking about you, right, as the mental side of it, and you're already kind of you're breaking down a little bit and things like that. I mean, I'd be nervous too. Like I was nervous when I made my first Olympic development team at like 13. I thought I was gonna crap my pants, like, cause I'm not that good, guys. Like I don't understand why I'm here, you know. So yeah, I know, right? They're gonna see me for who I am. This is terrible. Yeah, people are gonna laugh at me. Yeah. Thought I was gonna fail. But you're in this foreign land, right? You're surrounded by probably the best thing that's there is, at least in your area, is probably McDonald's, because God knows what they bring in that Olympic center. But with the, you know, you got the guys that were kind of helping you out. You got a little bit of a workout. You go into the first match. How did you feel after the first match? Did you feel after the first match like the weight was gone, kind of lifted from you a little bit?
I was free as a bird. It was it was amazing feeling. It was so crazy. You know, especially because the first round of my weight class was huge. So like the Japanese woman, Yui Sasaki, goes down in the first round. She's never lost an international match ever. And, you know, won the Olympics, won all the world championships in between, the heavy favorite. And so that happened in the first round.
Yep.
So I had to maintain a sense of composure while everything around me was kind of like, it turned up the intensity in the tournament. Some it was like, oh my God, now you really can't mess up. You really can't mess up, because now there's, you know, look, this field has opened up in a way.
No one in your way. Yeah.
Exactly. And so there was this now, but I was in it's almost dreamlike looking back. I was very present. I was very open to just enjoying the experience. I remember not being able to feel like, sometimes you go into a competition and you're like, oh, I feel like I'm going to win. Or sometimes you're like, I'm nervous, I might lose. Or it doesn't dictate the outcome usually, but like you have an inkling of what you feel like. I could not see the end of any of my wrestling matches. Like I could just see myself wrestling and that's it. And it was like, I had no feeling. I had no desire of winning. I had no scared, like afraidness of losing. Like it was so much just present moment wrestling that like winning and losing felt like such a faraway concept, even in the midst of all of that. Which looking back on it, even now, I'm like, how?
Yeah. So it's funny that you mentioned that, because I was actually just going to ask you, like, when you're in the middle of these matches, do you freak out in the middle of the match, like in your head? Obviously, you're not looking over your coach, like, what are we going to do? But like in your head, did you have moments? But it sounds like you didn't. It sounds like after that first match, things kind of went away a little bit and you're a little more comfortable in your skin. I mean, you'd already done so much, right? Like, but it was the pinnacle. It's the pinnacle. This is what you guys have been striving to do forever, since tiny kids, since whatever, you know? So just kind of knowing and hearing you say that, you know, after I got it, you know, into that match, knew that after the outcome, I just had to compose myself, and you seemed like you held it together. Now, when you won, dude, the expressions on your face, like watching you celebrate at the end, was classic. It was awesome. You were living in, like you just said, you're living in the moment, right? You're doing what you wanted to do, and you were happy doing it. So when you tell me about the last few seconds or last like 10 seconds of a match. What were you starting to think already once you were looking at the clock? You're like, I got this. Like, this is mine. Like, I got this. You can't even touch me now. Right. Like how did that roll out for you in that last match?
You know, it was really strange. It was, I could have sat in that 5 seconds. I remember I looked at the clock, there was 6 seconds left, and I was like, oh my God, won. Like I just won the Olympics. And there was so much elation and joy.
Mm-hmm.
But there was like a weird melancholy to it that it was like done. And I was like, no, don't be over. Like, this is so fun. This is such an amazing adventure. This is such a just insane experience. And it's ticking down like 6. I'm like, stop. Like, and I could have sat there and that 6 seconds forever. And like, you know, thankfully it actually did feel like it ticked very slowly by, but it was such a strange mixture of emotion because it was pure. I've reached this goal that I've had most of my life. Mm. And then there was also this, well, that means it's done. And like, that's such a weird thing you think about that other side. So, you know, of course the buzzer sounds, the sadness is gone. You're like, yeah. But I remember distinctly feeling that like weird melancholy with it of like, oh my God, you just don't anticipate feeling any negative emotions.
Right.
When you do something like that. But sure enough, of course, emotions will emotion.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. You start running around looking for like an exhibition match. Hey, anybody else want to wrestle quick?
Yeah.
Like, I don't want this to be done yet.
Just make this a 50-hour-long match, please. I'll live here forever.
That's so cool. So, and like I said, it was really fun being able to watch you at that. And don't get me wrong, like everybody has, everybody's excited at the end, but like watching you, it just felt like it was like, I fucking finally did it. This is it. I love it. Like just the look on your face, even the picture that you sent me. I mean, everybody behind you is just excited. They're as excited as you were. And that all those feelings came out, and you get like certain guys that get interviews and they get maybe they get a little sappy at the end when they're interviewed kind of thing. But like, it was just kind of fun being able to watch you celebrate because it felt like we could feel that celebration as well. So that was awesome.
Thank you for that. No, it was truly one of the moments you're just like, I don't know how anybody composes themselves up there. I've had so many people tell me, they're like, oh, it's so nice to see you like just completely expressing yourself. I'm like, how someone composes themselves is the talent I have.
I have a picture of me because I tried wrestling when I was like 33 at an outside tournament. And I think I still got a medal, even though I shouldn't have, because it was like a local like youth kind of tournament thing. And they just let old guys sign up for it. And I remember sitting on that. I don't think I'd ever gotten a medal as a youth. Right. I sucked. I was terrible. And then, yeah, right. I got up on the podium for this old guys tournament kind of thing. I'm like, I think I was excited about that one. I was like, I got a fucking medal. This is so cool.
I love that. You should be excited about that. Like just those things, man. Like celebrate whatever it is. Oh my gosh. I'm such a fan of over celebrating.
Right. Exactly. So, I mean, that was the best thing, like I said, of watching everything about, I mean, obviously it was fun watching you win, but like at the end, it was like, she is living in the moment entirely right there. So cool. So we've been going for about an hour. A lot of times we go for all kinds of crazy amounts of times. We rattled through, but we also know that you're dealing with a charger issue.
That's true. So
we don't want anything dying. Cause I can tell you this much. I had Siriano on a couple times. I actually had my computer unplugged for one of them and just lost the whole episode and had to start over. Yeah. It was crazy, but he understood. He was fine. He's going to come back, but it was a little different. We don't want to have any dying, but I appreciate you taking the time out and sitting and talking with us, Sarah. It's been awesome.
Yeah.
Any time, actually, before we even leave, you got any shout outs?
Oh my God. Well, then we'll be on for an hour, but oh my gosh, shout out seriously, just to everybody who's supported and just cheered me on along the way. Seriously, I am so grateful for just all of the relationships I've built in this sport. And that includes people that I haven't even met who have just like, I just feel the love and it's a cool thing. And I'm just grateful for it all. So thanks for listening to me blab.
Yeah. And you gained my wife. She said, I think she's my favorite guest.
Oh, yay. Thank you.
My wife has chimed in and giving you the approval. So that's even better. Yeah. I love So what do you have coming up next? Anything coming up? Are you training for anything? What are you doing?
I'm not training right now, really. I mean, I said that as I also just came to this interview after practice, but it doesn't feel like training.
It's fun.
I'm lying.
It's fun. Yeah.
I have to convince myself. No.
Yeah, because you didn't leave your shoes in the middle or nothing. So do you have plans of competing next?
I don't know. I'm gonna just kind of keep. I am hungry for. I can't make the decision to retire without having had some other perspective. So
sure.
I want to I'm hungry for some perspective here. And I don't know if I'm going to get that by continuously competing. With that said, I might come back to competing. I don't know, but I do know I need some perspective and I need some life lessons in a different avenue. And so I'm going to pump the brakes on competing just for a little bit, get some clarity and go from there.
Yeah. A little clarity. Okay. Well, I'm going to talk to you for just a second once we're done here, but we're going to let the folks go. I appreciate everybody tuning in. It's been Sarah Hildebrandt, man, Olympic gold medalist. This has been a great conversation. Thank you very much. So anybody, if you haven't, go check her out on Instagram. I believe you're on some other socials too. But go check her out, man. I mean, she's got some pretty decent perspective when it comes to just girls wrestling and athletics in general. So check her out. Sarah, it's been awesome. We are going to tell the folks, you bet. We're going to tell the folks goodbye. So peace.
Bye. Thank you, everyone.
End it.
All of our episodes are brought to you by Appleton Tattoo, located at 117 South Appleton Street in Appleton, Wisconsin, right off the main drag on College Avenue. You can't miss them. I've had some work done. I have a Celtic cross that covers my back that was done by Jason. We're not done yet. Jason Winans and crew, the artists that he have there, those guys are the best in the Fox Valley. They are definitely one to go to if it's something that you've just been kind of throwing around. They'll make you feel comfortable. It's a very clean environment, very nice crew, and very willing to get done whatever you need done when you need it done. You can message them on Facebook. I know they're on Facebook. You can give them a call at 920-604-8289 and get in touch with Jason Winans and crew at Appleton Tattoo, located again in Appleton, Wisconsin at 117 South Appleton Street, right in Appleton. Very flexible hours, great crew, clean environment again. I would not send you anywhere else except for these guys. Appleton Tattoo.